Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted you to walk away, because the moment you follow, you stop seeing for yourself. The master becomes the map, and the map becomes the trap. This isn't guidance, it's surrender. Burn the map, tear it from your hands. That's the first lesson of sovereignty. No guide, no master, no borrowed truth can show you who you are. Nietzsche stood atop the mountain and cast his wisdom to the wind, not to be followed, but to be left behind. Because even a sage becomes a prison when belief replaces vision. You were not born to trace another's line. The path must be walked, not watched. But here's the deeper betrayal. Even when you draw your own map, you may still be lost if the terrain you ignore lies within. Jung knew. He saw the beast buried beneath the mask, the gifts hidden in your rage, your fear, your hunger. The shadow isn't your shame, it's your sword. And until you descend to wield it, your sovereignty is just another myth. So forget the light. We're going underground. What you've been running from is where your power waits. The moment you burned the map, you stepped into exile, not from the world, but from the safety of imitation. This is where it begins, not with clarity, but collapse. The terrain ahead is not drawn in ink, but carved in blood and breath. Nietzsche did not offer answers. He offered abandonment, a gift wrapped in fire, the demand to betray the one who taught you. But betrayal is sacred when it severs the chain. To walk alone is not loneliness. It is the only path where your eyes become your own. Still, even here, even in this clearing of false light, something lingers. A shadow cast not by others, but by you. You think you've escaped the master, but what if you've only replaced him with a quieter tyrant, one whose voice lives inside? The descent has begun, and exile was only the first threshold. Nietzsche's truth cannot be inherited. The mountain speaks only in echoes, and fools mistake them for prophecy. Zarathustra's final command is not a teaching, but a severance. Go. Leave me. Forget me. It is a heresy wrapped in love, the kind only a true teacher can utter. For what is wisdom if it breeds dependency? What is truth if it can be swallowed without pain? The illusion is this, that knowledge can be transferred like coin, but truth is not a gift. It is a wound you must suffer through alone. Nietzsche knew to inherit another's path is to betray your own, and so he burned the bridge behind him, daring his disciples to walk without torch or trail. This is the crucible of sovereignty, not the gaining of power, but the loss of comfort, not the hearing of truth, but the silence that forces you to find it yourself. The parable of the student and the farmer. The student came seeking light, but the farmer gave him silence. No sermons, no scriptures, only stillness, sweat, and soil. And yet, beneath the rhythm of the seasons and the patient turning of the earth, a different kind of teaching grew. One that could not be spoken, only sensed. But when reverence replaced questioning, the farmer ended the lesson. You've stopped seeing me. You only see your own hunger for answers. With quiet precision, he shattered the illusion. The map the student admired was already outdated. A fossil of reality, a shadow of what once was. To believe in a teacher is to carry his memory, but to trust your own vision, that is to walk into the unknown with empty hands. The student left, not with wisdom, but with something rarer, the hunger to build his own map, drawn not from memory, but from his own footsteps. Jung's shadow as the hidden compass. But what if your footsteps never touch the full terrain? What if the map you build still omits the most treacherous valleys? Jung reveals the hidden betrayal. We exile parts of ourselves not with malice, but with fear. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the land you refuse to name. Your rage, your envy, your desire, not obstacles, but buried coordinates. And every time you deny them, your compass spins. You follow a path that feels right, but never leads home. The unconscious does not forget what the conscious rejects. It waits, it watches, it guides you in silence until you mistake your own sabotage for fate. Jung does not ask you to fight the shadow, he asks you to face it, to speak to it, to walk with it like a second self. Only then can your map begin to show the full kingdom. This is where the path turns inward, not in retreat, but in revelation. To walk alone was the first act. To face the shadow was the second. But now comes the third, to fuse the light and the dark into something indivisible. Jung called it individuation, not perfection, but completion. It is the moment when the self no longer fragments to be loved, no longer amputates parts to be accepted. You become the whole map, the terrain and the traveler, the storm and the stillness. You no longer seek truth in teachers, nor in resistance to them. You carry it in your scars, in the flame of your gaze, in the tension between your restraint and your hunger. This is not becoming someone else. It is remembering who you were before the world told you to be less. The self is not found, it is forged, where your contradictions meet and choose to stand together. The shadow as the final mentor. And now the great irony, what you fled in others, the teacher, the father, the master, you have rebuilt within. The shadow, unclaimed, becomes the last tyrant. Not with chains, but with silence. Not with commands, but with avoidance. Nietzsche warned against the idol. Jung reveals the hidden altar. If you do not name your shadow, you will serve it. You will call it fate, or instinct, or just the way I am. But it is still the old lie, obedience in disguise. To truly be sovereign is not to escape the master. It is to ensure you do not become one, not to others, not to yourself. The final mentor waits in the mirror. He wears your face. He speaks in your voice. And only when you look into his eyes without fear can the throne be claimed. Wholeness as destiny. This is the threshold, the end of exile, the return of the king. You have severed the master's voice. You have faced the silence beneath it. And now, at the edge of the unknown, you carry something no map could ever show. Yourself, undivided, not borrowed, not believed, known. The shadow no longer stalks your steps. It walks beside you. It speaks not as threat, but as ally. What once felt like shame now becomes signal. What once felt like darkness now becomes depth. Sovereignty is not a crown. It is a wound that no longer bleeds. It is the moment you stop asking for light and begin to radiate. You are not here to follow maps. You are here to redraw the world in your image, not as a disciple, not as a rebel, but as one who has become the terrain itself. The fallen king rises when nothing remains hidden. This was never the story of rebellion. It was the story of return to a throne long abandoned, buried beneath the ashes of who you were told to be. You were never meant to follow maps. You were meant to fracture them, to tear through the parchment of belief until only the raw terrain remained, and then to walk it barefoot, unblessed, unseen, undefeated. The shadow was not your flaw, it was your axis. What you exiled was never weakness. It was the compass waiting to turn. Rage was your fire, fear was your depth, shame was your key. The parts you buried became the door. and still you waited for someone else to open it. But no one is coming. This was always your kingdom to unearth. And the only path back was through the dark you called enemy. Nietzsche taught you to sever, Jung taught you to descend, but neither could finish the journey for you. Only you could stand at the crossroads and refuse to fragment. This was the true act of sovereignty, to gather what was scattered, to name what was feared, to wear what was once hidden. You are no longer seeking, you are no longer fleeing. You are building something no master can touch, a self that holds both the crown and the abyss. Let this be your next step. Do not teach, do not follow, become. Now rise, not as follower, not as fragment, but as fire remembered. The shadow no longer waits behind you, it walks beside you as weapon and witness. The map is ash, the master silence. And still, your footsteps thunder forward. The world will try to hand you new gods, new truths, new cages shaped like crowns. Refuse them all. You are the one who burned the map. You are the one who faced the mirror and did not flinch. You are the fallen king, not because you fell, but because you chose to descend. And in that descent, you found the only kingdom that was ever real, yourself. Let them follow if they dare. You do not lead, you ignite.